Well, first of all, I think we have to push back on the idea that Iran and Russia are out of Syria. They're not out of Syria. Russia still has significant military forces deployed in Syria. They're at the Tartus naval facility, the air base next to that facility, and there's another air base in Qamishli, I think, in Rojava, in the Kurdish area, where there's significant Russian forces continuing to operate. They're not involved militarily, but the fact that Russia has a presence in Syria brings with it the reality that Syria is of interest to both the Russian foreign ministry and the Russian defense ministry. And so I think Russia is a player in terms of the reality that it is articulating support for certain policies. It's tried to influence outcomes, etc. Iran has made it clear that they aren't backing away from their support of Hezbollah, and that they were going to seek the reestablishment of the umbilical cord. The Iranians have said over and over again that over the years they have developed very good relationships with entities inside Syria, and those relationships still exist. So I think the Iranians, there's a hidden hand of Iran that's still very much active in Syria, and then there's the Russian presence, which may be, muted a little bit in terms of they don't have aircraft out bombing targets, but they're still there. There's an interest there that can't be ignored. And I would say that both of these factor into the fact, that Syria now is primarily defined not by, a Russian-Iranian presence, but by Turkish and Israeli areas of influence. And so I think, you have Turkey and Israel taking the lead on, the big picture stuff, but that Iran and Russia continue to play behind the scenes role in discussions with Turkey and with Iran, not with Israel, but Russia with Israel, definitely. Syria is just it's a tragedy watching the Syrian nation evaporate. That's what we're seeing. I just think last night there was heavy violence between Jolani's HTS thugs and the Druze, the significant Druze populations outside of Damascus. Israel has said that they're supportive of the Druze, so it would be interesting to see what the Israeli reaction is to that. HTS is a byproduct of Turkish intelligence and Turkish strategic thinking. Will Turkey back up HTS? Could this lead to Turkish-Israeli direct conflict? This is sort of the discussion we're having about Syria right now is, what is the Israeli sphere of influence going to be? What is the Turkish sphere of influence going to be? And, how is the world going to deal with Jolani? We don't have a game book on how to deal with it, how to normalize relations with Al-Qaeda, head choppers. This guy, Jolani, had a $10 million bounty on his head late last year from the U.S. State Department. Now, we're meeting with them. There's talk about, the president meeting with them. This is crazy. But it's all part and parcel of the fact that the Syria as a sovereign nation no longer exists. It's now to that which is necessitated by the needs defined by a legitimate, peaceful nuclear energy program. That means 3.75% enrichment. That means having centrifuges in numbers and capabilities sufficient to supporting that, and not this excessive enrichment capacity, not a stockpile of 60% enriched uranium, not even 20% uranium for the Tehran research reactor. Maybe Iran has to get rid of the ability to fabricate uranium metal. Anything that's not necessary to the fabrication of fuel for the Bushehr reactor has to go. That's the reality. And that's what Iran is now negotiating in support of, because Iran knows the truth, that anything in excess of this is designed to create Iran's potential as a nuclear weapon state. It's a threshold power on the cusp, days away from being able to convert the 60% enriched uranium into weapons-grade uranium, and weeks away from being able to turn that into uranium metal, configure it into a gun design, put it into a warhead, which they've already built, put it on missiles which exist, and fire against Israel without testing. There doesn't need to be a test. A gun design of a uranium weapon is 100% guaranteed to succeed. That's why in the Second World War, we didn't test a uranium weapon. We tested a plutonium weapon, more complex design. We dropped a uranium weapon because we knew it was going to work. We just knew it was going to work. So this is where we're at. This is the dangerous situation that we're in. And I've been saying the only way forward is to stop pretending that Iran has the ability to be to threaten the world with the leverage. Again, that's Mr. Morandi's term. This was leverage. You don't get to have leverage, pal. You don't get it. You have no right to have this leverage. And the world will respond. The reason why Russia and China aren't running to the defense of Iran is that they know Iran's not allowed to have a nuclear weapon. They support that. Now, you can't do something in a matter of weeks unless you've prepared to do that.
So why do you need to attack Iran to convince them to go after nuclear?
Because Iran has become a nuclear weapons threshold state. That is a statement of fact. Yeah, Morandi admitted it right here in front. I think it was maybe with Danny Haifon. He admitted it. He finally admitted it when I pushed him. He said, yeah, we're a nuclear weapons threshold state. Boom! You just condemned yourself because you're not allowed to be a nuclear weapons threshold state, especially in a world where you have Benjamin Netanyahu in the United States looking for any excuse to shut down your program. And this is what I've been saying all along. To all the people that don't like me, stick it in your ear. I don't care. And you know who else agrees with me, Nemo? The Iranian government agrees with me. Because you remember, we're not going to negotiate with the Americans. We're not going to do this. Screw America. We're going to do what we want. Wrong. Because they were confronted with the reality that I told you and everybody else. We will blow Iran off the face of the earth. They will not be allowed to have a nuclear weapon, and Iran knows it. That's why they're negotiating in good faith, and so are we. And we're going down that path that I said was the only path possible to avoid a war. And now we're having that technical discussion. The one that everybody said, Iran will never do this. Iran's not going to attack the United States, nor is Iran going to attack Israel unprovoked. Iran doesn't want nuclear weapons. Let's just make that clear. And Netanyahu's reasoning, this is the same idiot that's been screaming this same mantra since 1995. With all due respect, Netanyahu, and I give you no respect because I despise you. There's no reason to enrich uranium except for the fuel that's in the nuclear power plants that Iran has and they're operating. That requires enriched uranium. Somebody's enriching it. So somewhere around the world, BB, there's a reason to enrich uranium. Now, what you would like is a situation where the Iranians become dependent upon outside sources of enriched uranium to power their reactors. But see, in the world that the Iranians live in, that means that people like you who hate them and want them gone will influence people like us, the Americans, to turn off that spigot, which we did in the past when Iran was trying to actively pursue its rights under Article 4 of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty to have a peaceful nuclear, energy capability. We made it impossible. We sanctioned Iran. We didn't allow nations to come in and build the reactor. We shut Iran off from sources of uranium and uranium fuel. So the Iranians are saying, no, we have to have the whole thing, which we're allowed to do, by the way. So with all due respect for Benjamin Netanyahu, he's wrong. Iran has every right to have enrichment. And there's safeguards agreements that Iran has signed and will sign with the International Atomic Interagency to ensure that that enrichment program, which it does have, is for the exclusive use of supporting peaceful nuclear energy, not a nuclear weapons program. Now, where Iran has made a mistake, a fundamental mistake, and we've had this conversation before, and I'm going to end up pissing off all your whatever the hell we want to call them, your fake Iran supporters, because that's what I call them. Anybody who says Iran has a right to a nuclear weapon, you hate Iran. You really do hate Iran because you just mean Iran's going to be destroyed. Iran has no right to a nuclear weapon, none whatsoever. And any attempt by Iran to develop a nuclear weapon doesn't give them the ability to hold people off. It just guarantees that when we strike Iran, we'll do so with even bigger nuclear bombs.
By the way, Scott, the official rhetoric by the Iranian government, they don't want to get nuclear weapons.
Right, that's their official rhetoric. But Nima, you know, because I know you're a smart guy, you know what Larijani said. You know what the IRGC general said. You know what they all said.
If we are attacked.
Bingo. But they said also that they can do this in a matter of weeks. No one will see them coming in. Nobody will be able to warn the Iranians. They'll just wake up one day and wham, everything will be gone. And nobody wants this. Trump has boxed himself into a corner where the only alternative we have for taking out is to do this horrible attack, which will probably succeed, but will taint us. And it destroys the global economy. It destroys everything. It destroys the reputation of the United States. It disrupts everything we're trying to achieve. Trump doesn't want this. That's the other important factor. Trump has boxed himself into a corner, just like the Iranians did. And so you have these two parties now that have embraced positions that are unsustainable. Iran cannot continue to be a threshold state. And the United States cannot attack Iran with nuclear weapons. But if Iran continues to pursue that, then we'll do that and both of us lose. And that's why, despite all the stupidity of the rhetoric surrounding these negotiations, especially on the Iranian side, we will never negotiate. America sucks. Your death to America. Blah, 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 blah. No, you're going to negotiate. You have no choice. But it's the same with the United States. You know, except Trump's been a little bit more moderate. You know, he doesn't want regime change. He says he wants Iran to have sanctions lifted. We'll see. I mean, he's surrounded by people that don't want that. But the one thing that we know he doesn't want, and we know that the people surrounding him in the Trump administration don't want, is a war with Iran, because it would require us to use weapons that we don't want to use. We don't want to let that genie out of the bottle. This is why we're having a third round of negotiations right now that are talking about technical subjects. Technical subjects. That's how do you go about getting Iran to a position where it can be monitored. You know, one of the big problems facing Iran right now is that it has a centrifuge production capability that's not being adequately monitored. So we're no longer talking about just a breakout scenario. We're talking about a sneak out scenario, meaning that it's distinctly possible that Iran has built underground centrifuge cascades that aren't accounted for by the IAEA. I don't believe Iran has done that, because that would be outright cheating. And Iran's not in the business of cheating with the IAEA. But trust but verify. We're going to have to go in there and they're going to have to deal. So these are some of the difficult technical hurdles that are going to have to be crossed. So we've developed a new weapon called the GBU-27. It's a 30,000 pound massive ordnance penetrator. And we've used it in Yemen, and we're not destroying the targets. The reason why I bring this up is we've painted ourselves into a corner here by saying that Iran can't be a nuclear threshold state, a nuclear weapons threshold state. But how do we then prevent Iran from becoming one if they choose to do so? If we use conventional weapons, we can't destroy it. It's acknowledged. We can't do it. So then we have to, and this isn't a news flash to us today, although we've now used the 30,000 pound bombs that we thought maybe could do something, but they can't do anything. This is why in Donald Trump's first administration, he redid the nuclear posture. For all the people out there that, accuse me of, warmongering and all this, I just know what reality is. The reality is that we built nuclear weapons specifically designed to take out Iran's underground nuclear facilities because we lack the conventional capacity to do so otherwise. And we built these weapons as part of our nuclear posture, which allows us to use nuclear weapons preemptively against weapons of mass destruction targets. Again, for all the people out there saying, well, America can't do this. You don't matter. Your opinion doesn't matter. The policy exists. It's in place. The Biden administration certified it, assumed it. It's ours, inherited by the Trump administration. As we speak, we have a nuclear posture which has been staffed, agreed to. There's no more debate. That's the other thing I want to tell people. There's not going to be a debate. The decisions have been made that if we're attacking Iran, we're using nuclear weapons. And we have the posture to do that. And we have the employment plan where we've actually taken these weapon systems and put them out there. This is why the B-2 bomber, equipped with B-61-12 nuclear penetrators, will devastate Iran's nuclear infrastructure. Now, this is also why the W-76-2 low-yield nuclear weapon mounted on Trident missiles on an Ohio-class submarine operating in the Indian Ocean as we speak will fire the first strikes, which will be reduced trajectory Tridents. No one will see them coming in. Nobody will be able to warn the Iranians. They'll just wake up one day and Iran is off base here. And thank God, we're in negotiations right now. And I say it also, thank God America is recognizing the absolute need to tell Benjamin Netanyahu to stick it in his ear. Netanyahu isn't going to disrupt this because we don't want a war with Iran. We're at the point, and I've made this point over and over again, we cannot destroy Iran's nuclear capability with conventional weapons. During the Gulf War, there was this facility in Taji Air Base north of Baghdad called a Sector Operations Center. And it was in this bunker. And we believed in the end that this Sector Operations Center was being used to direct the Scud missile attacks. This is their command center. And we were bouncing 2,000-pound, GBU 28s off of it and couldn't penetrate it. And GBU 28 is a very effective weapon, a penetrating bomb. So at the end of the war, we developed something called, we're bouncing other ones off. We developed the GBU 28, which was a 5,000-pound bomb. We dropped two of them near the end of the war. One missed the target, the other one hit it, and we thought that we achieved a control. I went in as a weapons inspector a couple years later and found out that we didn't even destroy that. Today we've got, and so these are, these GBU 28s and GBU 57 or 28s are one of the mainstays that we have. The 2,000-pound bombs that Israel drops are these bunker busters. They can't destroy anything that we're not out of the woodwork, but we're out of the political framework phase of this discussion. Both sides have agreed we have to move forward and make this work. So now they're bringing in the technicians. And that's a good step because now the technicians are going to come up with how do we turn this political will to have an agreement into an actual agreement. And Netanyahu can just pound sand. He has no say in this whatsoever. He will not succeed because what he's asking us to do is destroy the credibility of the United States, to destroy the moral authority of the United States. I know there's going to be people out there. America has no credibility. America has no moral authority. Yes, we do. We have credibility and moral authority. That's why the Iranians are negotiating with us in good faith, by the way. But if we go around and we launch a preemptive nuclear strike against Iran, whatever the justifications are, we've just tainted ourselves, and nobody wants that. So I'm very enthusiastic about these negotiations. I've always said that's the only way out. I got a lot of heat from it, but I don't care. Because it's the only way out.